Welcome to Act Now. I'm Julianna Forlano. Brittany Ramos DeBarros, who I'm sure I'm mispronouncing the last name here, proud Afro-Latina Staten Islander, community organizer, and combat veteran, is running for Congress in New York's 11th district. You may remember her because we covered the Amazon warehouse protest that was going on there as the Amazon workers are trying to create a union in that area. And this is where I got to know this candidate. Listen to her speaking at that recent protest.
I'm humbled to even have the opportunity. I know that is a big deal. I don't take it lightly. I don't take that trust lightly. To be able to stand here today in solidarity with you all. And it's true, I'm running for Congress here to fight for workers, to fight for working class people in Staten Island and Brooklyn. But I'm not here because I'm running for Congress. I'm running for Congress because I grew up in a working class family where my parents worked multiple jobs, worked themselves into the hospital, worked until we could still barely put food on the table half the time. We could still barely keep our housing. And that's not right. I'm here and I'm running for Congress because I'm sick of greedy people and greedy corporations getting wealthier off our backs at the expense of our wellness, at the expense of our dignity, while we work ourselves to death. Literally. While we work ourselves to death. And if it's not insult to injury, these buildings were built with subsidies from our tax dollars. $18 million of tax subsidies, basically coming out of our pockets. I work hard every day. I pay my fair share, and I'm happy to do it when I know that those dollars are going to pay for our schools, for benefits, for health cares. Not to line the pockets of greedy bastards who go to space while people are dying.
You see why I wanted to have her on the show? You see, she's coming up next. But here, as an introduction, let us play you her campaign video.
My name is Brittany Ramos DeBarros, and I'm a proud Afro-Latina Staten Islander, community organizer, and combat veteran. This island has been my home since I came back from war, only to find my fellow veterans and community members struggling and dying on the streets. I began to ask why we always have money for war, but not to take care of the people sent to fight them, or the people we're supposedly fighting for.
These wars are immoral. Profiting off of killing is immoral. It is time to stand up, and we won't be silent anymore.
Since then, I've watched a revolving door of leaders tell us what we can't have. Tell us that the poor and vulnerable are our enemies, while the rich skip out on their taxes and get richer off our backs. Enough.
I'm running for Congress because we're tired of being told to settle for crumbs and be grateful. We have the highest COVID case rate in the city, and instead of fighting for care and relief, Nicole Malliotakis is out here inciting violent coups and acting like our lives and democracy are worthless.
I believe in us. I believe we can have a country where no one dies because they can't afford health care, where we have thriving schools filled with happy kids and teachers that don't have to scrape to get by. My name is Brittany Ramos DeBarros, and I'm running to represent New York 11 in Congress. I am unbought, unbossed, and unafraid. I know our power when we come together. We, the workers, the mothers, the nurses, the first responders, the forgotten, are the real backbone of this district. We are already powerful, and when we fight together, we win.
Welcome to the show, Brittany. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So there's a lot to unpack here. Your district is Staten Island, which actually has more registered Democrats than Republicans, yet it almost always leans red. Can you talk about what is going on in your district?
Yep, that's right. And my district is Staten Island and South Brooklyn. We can't forget Bay Ridge over there. But
it's very similar in makeup to Staten Island, Bay Ridge.
Something like that, right? But we, not only do we have a majority of actually registered Democrats when we look at the numbers in Staten Island alone, when we put them together, we have almost 2-to-1 Democrats compared to registered Republicans. And I think a lot of folks, even who live here, are shocked to hear that, because so many of us have internalized this idea that we are, the minority, that we don't have power, and that we can't have nice things. And we have to kind of settle. And yet, when I really started thinking about it differently, was knocking doors, hundreds of doors in the district, and realizing that what I was hearing at the door was actually cynicism and hopelessness, not a concern about left or right, but just that guy sounds nice, but someone like that can't win here. Or I can't even tell the difference between the Democrats and Republicans who run here. So people sit it out. And even in the 2018 primary, the Democrat turnout was like 11% running, rounding up. And so I think that we need a campaign that is really speaking to the everyday people who I think are more with us than people assume. And I think that Staten Island is more anti-establishment than it is conservative. And that's why, yes, Trump is popular. Unfortunately, he was effective at positioning himself in a lot of people's minds as an outsider who was going to fight for working class people. But
even in New York, where he has screwed working class people. I mean, Staten Island is part of New York City. Oh, that was hard to swallow.
I know, but Bernie is also very popular in Staten Island.
I was just going to ask you that.
Because he's also positioned as an outsider. And so, I think that the campaign that we need, the organizing that we need, is not actually about left versus right. It's about speaking to people from the place of right versus wrong and top versus bottom. That it is the ultra wealthy who have been controlling party politics for too long versus the rest of us who are just trying to survive. And so that's what we're doing.
Well, you've been involved in the Poor People's Campaign and About Face Veterans Against the War. These are two things that are, kind of outside of party politics. You're standing up for the poor, and you're standing against forever wars, which both of the parties seem to be okay with, probably because they get a lot of money from defense contractors. This really positions you well to be an independent voice.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think I can speak to voters in a different way because I am like a lot of people here. You hear so many people when you're canvassing who say, oh, no, I'm not registered with a party. I'm proudly independent. And I was one of those people for so much of my life. But I then also realized that if we can't engage in the primary, then we can't be a part of making sure that we have someone who becomes the nominee who will really fight for us. And the reality is until we change some of the structural barriers, in most places in New York, you have to run as one of the parties in order to win. And I think the Democrats, although some of the, establishment folks have not, really been fighting, I think, for the values we say we believe in, to me, it's about running on a platform that is actually upholding the values that the party has claimed that we are supposed to be fighting for a long time.
When's the primary?
I'm excited about that. It's June 2022.
June 2022 is a primary. And who are you running against in the primary?
Yeah, so right now there's one other person who announced they also ran in 2018 and then dropped out after a couple months. And so, we wish them well, but we are just really focused on building the movement. We started early, we're knocking doors, we are canvassing already, right? Because we know that this is not just about turning out the same folks who have been turning out. It's about really organizing and building a base of working people here who are ready to take our power back.
Has the Democratic Party given you a wink or a nod or some kind of support? Are they supporting you in some way?
Not yet. I think in the way that they typically approach this
it's still early. And so I've been making my rounds, having all of the conversations with leadership and different folks, and I hope to earn their support. I hope to build buy-in behind the idea that if we actually want to advance these shared values, that we really have to reach beyond the choir, and we have to be willing to invest in building in a way that not just can help us win this time, but where we could actually finally hold the seat because we have a real energized base behind us.
Well, the party didn't support AOC either very well, right? When she went against that other guy who was there forever.
Yeah.
And this is New York we're talking about.
Yeah.
Same
I mean,
party mechanics.
But I think that, I think that there is so much space and opportunity. And I feel really good about the momentum we've built. We, have already raised over $250,000 in grassroots contributions, not taking a dime of corporate PAC money. I'm so proud of that. That's pretty unprecedented for a candidate like me in the district. And we have, a lot of exciting momentum, volunteers signing up, and endorsements from folks like Brand New Congress, Way to Lead, PCCC, Move On, and several others that we, so we're feeling really good about how we've been received in district, both by those who are in party leadership, but I think most importantly by everyday people who need to be a part of building this movement together.
Your bio said that your time in Afghanistan really changed your mind about war and that you came home angry and hurt and feeling betrayed. Can you talk a little bit about that experience where your eyes were opened?
Yeah, and I do veteran organizing. I work with thousands of anti-war vets around the country, and I think that a lot of folks don't realize how common perspective this is within veteran and military community. That this is, I think, probably the majority popular opinion.
That's very interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's just very interesting that the general zeitgeist is that veterans are pro whatever they, the military. When they're
I
maybe
know.
not.
I think that that's because there is a real civilian military divide, and the exposure that most folks have to veterans and the military community are when we are being kind of held up in politician dog and pony shows, and all of these kinds of environments where you're not slowing down and really hearing how people feel about what they participated in. And for me, I was a true believer when I deployed. I knew that there were some problems, that some things needed to change, but I really believed that I was going to help the Afghan people, protect them from the bad guys, and fight for freedom and democracy and all these things. And when I got there, it was just devastating, honestly, to realize that we were doing so much harm, so much more harm than good, I think, to the very people who I was supposedly there to protect, to see the rampant kind of lack of accountability and corruption within decision-making chains and chains of command, and to see the way that corporations seem to be really running the show. And so, I came home and I really struggled to make sense of why. What did I just participate in if it wasn't to actually have a real commitment to helping the Afghan people, and it didn't really seem to be doing anything to help the American people. So what, and
so what was it for?
Really digging.
What was it for? I mean, I know contractors made a ton of money there. I know there are natural resources that the U.S. would love to exploit there. What do you think was the actual reason?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of reasons, and I think in the discourse around what happened with Afghanistan, I've been a person really pushing us to be nuanced and reflective and remember to challenge ahistoricism. I think that, it's really important to dig into the history of the US's involvement in the region before we invaded, and the role that played in, in where we are today and where Afghan people are today. And I think that that's really critical, because I think that if we are going to have a different way of engaging, I think that our foreign policy is not just harmful, it is counterproductive to our goals. It makes us less safe and secure. And it makes people around the world less, safe and secure in the places where we're bombing and invading. And so I think that we have to really take a look at the ways that we have meddled, the ways that we have engaged in proxy wars, and just the history of interventionism, and question, has that actually been working for us? And I would argue that it hasn't, and I would argue that it has been working for politicians and corporations who, like you said, have gotten very wealthy off of these kinds of interventions.
The technique notwithstanding that President Biden used to leave Afghanistan, do you think it was the right move for the Biden administration?
Yes, no question. I am grateful that President Biden followed through on that promise. I was deployed in 2012 when he, in his vice president debate, promised profusely that, these other guys, they have conditions on leaving, not us. We leave in 2014 no matter what. And my mission in Afghanistan was transition operations to support that withdrawal plan. So I felt pretty that is one of the pretty personal betrayals I felt, was just that, I went there, I was helping with these transition operations, and then we didn't leave. Like, what? Why? And the fact that there's not even a real expectation that there would be accountability for that. And so I'm grateful that President Biden followed through on that. And also, I think that a plan for withdrawal that does not include real humanitarian reparations to the Afghan people and does not include a real plan around displacement and refugees is a plan to continue forever war. It is a plan in line with the kind of policy that we have had in the past that has led us back repeatedly to regions over and over and over again. And I would argue that there are some bad actors who know that, and who know that that by not actually addressing our own doctrinal beliefs that that speak to the fact that the best way to address extremism and insurgency is actually to build up civil infrastructure and political, social, economic stability. That folks know that that's actually written in our own doctrine, and the fact that we don't practice that, I feel like, amounts to a very intentional plan to make sure that at our expense, at the expense of the American people, that there will be future opportunities to manufacture consent for more war that continues to line the pockets of more profiteers.
You said it. Are we not voting for this woman? We must vote. I'm going to move to Staten Island. So from the other part of Brooklyn. So I was really interested in something that I saw on your About Face Veterans Against the War page. It said that you have your bio there. It said you have a special interest in PSYOPs, which I was like, awesome, let's discuss. Because it seems like here, not even in the military, but here, the propaganda from the right and the propaganda from the left is, it's all crazy. Do you have any suggestions for, just give us a sense from a PSYOPs perspective of what we're looking at? Because I think people are losing their minds.
Yeah. And, for anyone who doesn't know, psychological operations is essentially psychological warfare. That's what it used to be called. And it is propaganda.
No one wanted to say, we're doing warfare. Let's just call it operations.
Right. No, we love euphemisms. Yes. Kind of like the Department of Defense.
Right.
And I, so my training was in propaganda, but particularly propaganda with the aim to shape people's beliefs toward action, right? Because we wanted to shape their behavior in some way. And that's how the military thinks about messaging and strategy. That's indicated even in the fact that, this doesn't fall under the purview of PSYOP, but the DoD has an entire office dedicated to forming contracts for movies, TV shows, video games, music. And one of the things that they do is when they sign those contracts, the person, gets access to consulting, military equipment, whatever, but they sign over creative control to the DoD, and the DoD will redact whatever messaging or stories that they don't feel shines, our operations and military in the light that they want it to be shined in. And so I tell that story because yeah, thousands.
What's going on? I'm like, why does everyone why is this so glorified? I mean, and so you explained it. Thank you very much.
Yes, and it's like, and so for me, I think that we underutilize the strategy of kind of focusing on the reach and popularization and normalization of our ideas. I think that sometimes there's this tendency for folks in movement in particular to kind of live in a bubble and be like, everybody already knows this. Everybody already knows this terminology or phrasing that we're using. Of course, I mean, right now, the discussion around taxing the rich, right? I'm hearing folks say, well, everybody knows that. We don't actually need more spread. We need action. And I'm like, well, even if, first of all, I know everybody doesn't know it because of the skyrocketing Google searches that are happening, which means that people are like, what does this mean? Right.
Which shocks me at how out of touch people are. Anyway,
right,
go ahead.
Exactly. And that's, and I think we just have to really check ourselves around our commitment to reaching people who are not already organized, right? Who are not already in movement. That's how we grow. That's how we build power. And I think that messaging strategy and thinking about how we can reach people, why people believe what they believe, setting aside the tendency towards condescension, and really trying to honestly understand, why does this person genuinely believe this and how can I speak to that, is something that we have to be doing if we actually want to grow our political projects and our political power.
Even, I mean, irregardless of the political divide, most Americans don't want forever wars.
Right.
So on a lot of things, we're kind of on the same page, but we've been pitted against each other because just like you said, with the wars and creating chaos abroad instead of creating stability, it benefits corporations. It's just, how do we get out of this? It seems like a swirling drain where we're going down the tubes while the corporations profit off our backs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's real. And I think we need to communicate how, that this is literally life and death. I make an anti-war statement, or I say, I'm sorry that I participated in this invasion because I don't feel that I helped. And people are clutching their pearls like, oh my God, how could you say that? And I'm just like, because it's true. And we need to tell the truth if we're going to change anything. We can't actually change anything if we don't confront the truth.
When I heard you speak, I was like, yeah, we need her on the show immediately. And I think I said that. And then I guess your guy was like, hey, we can get her to do that. And so it was terrific. And I was really thrilled because, I mean, I have heard these talking points before, not talking points, but I've heard these point of views before, is because we're part of the movement. But it's just so nice to hear them being spoken out loud in a position that is, you're unapologetic. You're not hedging like, well, we need a Department of Defense because we got it. And maybe, you're just out there. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate the clarity of your message.
Thank you.
If there are new Staten Islanders watching, what would you want to say specifically to the folks in your district, meaning new to you?
Yeah, I would say that we're building a campaign that is about all of us. And we have every reason to not be hopeful, to be cynical, to feel that I'm just another person who is making a bunch of promises that I won't deliver on. But what I hope comes through is I'm the kind of person who is really committed to advancing an agenda. I'm tired of making demands, and I know so many other people are. I'm tired of making demands. I'm tired of begging people in positions of power to do the bare minimum. The only way we change things is if we come together and we step into our power, and they want us to be hopeless and cynical and believe that we don't have the power to win, that we have to be Republican light, that we have to be these perfect, polished ideas. I don't believe that. I believe that being real, building deep relationship builds power. And that's what we're doing. I want you to be a part of it. This campaign is all of ours, and join us.
Brittany Ramos DeBarros, thank you so much for coming on the program. I hope you'll join us again sometime.
I'd love to.
I hope that people who are watching across the country actually see what I saw when I invited Brittany to come on the program. And these days you can get involved from across the country in campaigns that you feel are important. So thank you so much. Miss Ramos DeBarros is running for New York's 11th district. Let us know where we can find out more information, Brittany, and where people can maybe make a contribution if they feel so moved.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again so much for having me. You can check out our website at brittanyforcongress.org, all spelled out, or our social media, Britt, number 4, Congress. And please do consider a contribution, especially if you're outside of the district and can't volunteer. We've been talking about the foothold that corporate money has in our decision making. And the only way we're going to change that is if we elect enough people who are truly loyal to the grassroots, to everyday people. But that means that everyday people have to show up, have to contribute so that we have the resources to really win. And I know that together we can do that. So thank you so much.
Thank you
again.
so much. We wish you the best. We'll be following your campaign and hopefully talk to you again soon.